So if for some reason you don't know what It is, I'll quickly explain it because I don't want to spend too much time on this. It is a movie that is based off a book written by Stephen King about a killer clown who can turn into people's worst fear and kill them and eat them.
Aren't you going to say hello?
And that's essentially what It is, what this movie is about, what the TV movie back 20, 30 years ago was about, and what about the book was about. And this movie has a lot of issues, and I mean a lot of issues, but there is a lot that I did like about it, and there's a lot that caught me off guard that I didn't expect, so we'll talk about that first before I completely ream this movie, just to kind of have a nice silver lining around this dumpster fire. The biggest thing that I liked about this movie is the message or the themes of the movie, and that is what caught me off guard the most. I didn't expect this movie to deal with anything, and it kind of does. The biggest theme of the movie is dealing with past trauma and making it so that you can accept it. That's essentially the biggest overarching theme of the movie. Almost every main character in the movie has some kind of past trauma or some guilt that's weighing down them, and the movie is all about them overcoming it and accepting it and then moving past it. And that is interesting and very different for a horror movie, and something I really didn't expect to see out of this movie. Every character goes through this movie, they come into the movie with something that they need to deal with, they confront it head on, and then at the end, they overcome it. And so it's this nice arc through the movie where you watch these characters overcome their trauma, and that was really nice to see. And of course, all the performances here are excellent. I mean, these are top-tier actors. James McAvoy is great, even though his American accent's pretty spotty.
But we have to stick together.
Jessica Chastain's great. Bill Hader's great. This whole cast is very good. They're all cast pretty well. They all do a good job. And Andy Muschietti, behind the camera as director, really brings some nice camera movements and some nice visuals to this movie.
With me, I never left. I remember all of it.
But that's kind of it for me. The biggest problems with this movie come from the script and from the runtime, specifically. This movie is 2 hours and 50 minutes long. No spooky clown movie should be this long. None. There's so much in this movie that you can trim down to make this a lot tighter, to make this actually work a lot better, to make the themes hit harder, but it just pads itself out with so much unnecessary stuff that it gets grating at a certain point. The movie starts fairly strong. You start with watching these characters all in their own lives, and one's like a stand-up comic, one's doing some architecture, one's in insurance, and that's all nice. I liked all of that, and then they kind of come together in Derry, and all of that stuff I found to be pretty strong. But immediately after they come to Derry, the movie utterly falls on its face from about the 35-minute point to the 2 hour and 50-minute point. Almost everything it tries and almost everything it aims to accomplish, it falls short of. And that is mainly because this is a nightmare of structure and a nightmare of tone. Normally, a horror movie would love to hear it be called a nightmare, but in this case, this is not what you want. I'm not even sure I can classify this as a horror movie because there's honestly more comedic elements than there is horror elements, and the comedic elements land just about as regularly as the horror elements in that they don't land that regularly at all. All of the comedy, I think, falls on its face. I think I laughed once, and that was it. In a 3-hour runtime with insistent jokes, that is well below what should be acceptable for a comedy. And I'm not sure I was legitimately frightened or tense or disturbed at any point in this movie because a lot of it just feels fake. A lot of it feels phony. Most of this movie can be boiled down to jump scares and CGI. There's a lot of moments where even when it looks like there's something practical going on, like a practical dummy or a practical monster, it almost looks so clean that it seems CG. And of course, the ending of the movie is almost all done in a computer, and it just feels so fake. In a movie that has such lofty aims, in a movie that has such heady themes, it just is so fake. And that's at odds with itself. It clashes with itself so hard to the point where this movie feels like a soap opera. There are absolutely corny and disgusting lines of dialogue in this movie. There is overbearing, way too dramatic music, and every single thing that happens seems to be met with a character taking it as if it's the most serious thing in the world, even if it isn't that serious. And then there are moments when a character should be taking things seriously, and they just undercut the scene with a joke. There's literally a part where a guy gets stabbed in the face, and it's played for laughs.
To the losers.
And that's why I call this a tonal nightmare. It doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to be. There's a lot of legitimately good horror elements in this movie that are almost always undercut by a joke. It's like, oh, there's Pennywise and joke. Oh, there's a kid that's about to get his head ripped off and joke. There's some great horror moments in here, but they are so few and far in between that I can't call this a horror, and there are some interesting comedic things happening, but they're so few and far in between that I can't even call this a comedy. I don't know what this is. After they get back to Derry, it's literally one character after another reminiscing on old times that most of them you've already seen before. And the ones you haven't seen before all end the same way. Literally, this is a structural nightmare. It's 30 minutes at the start to set up, and then an hour of the same scene happening over and over again. Character goes to reminisce on something from their past, then clown attacks them, then next character goes to reminisce on something from their past, and then the clown attacks them, on repeat for an entire hour. That is absolutely mind-numbing. And then, after all this reminiscing happens, they go to fight the clown in another hour-long extravaganza of just CG. It's a nightmare. This movie is a disaster from start to finish. And even though there's some things that do work, way more things fall flat on their face than work. So I cannot recommend this. I can't. I don't know what to say. It's just... I don't know. I sat there for 3 hours and felt nothing. I didn't feel scared, I didn't laugh, I didn't cry, I didn't feel emotional. This movie did nothing. It has no impact on me, and I'm convinced, and I guarantee that this happens, I will forget about it in a week. It's like a 3, maybe a 4 out of 10, just because it's so well made. But I can't recommend you go watch a well-made movie that's 3 hours long that achieves nothing. So, that's it. I don't know.